Welcome to Cool Cars, Interesting People. Today, his family has been in the funeral business for 4 generations. We're going to talk to Dale Martin Jr. Today we have a 1953 Chev panel wagon, and we have Glory Reimer. Come on in, Glory. Let's talk about this. Welcome. Well, first of all, yeah, and first off, let's talk about you. You're with Creepy Hollow, which is now moved. How's that going for you?
I like it.
So tell us about Creepy Hollow and your new location.
Creepy Hollow's our new location for the haunted attraction that we've been doing for the past 16 years now.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, and we really like the new location. The layout is wonderful. We had 20 acres to spread out on, spread our wings. Yeah.
So what other things go on in Creepy Hollow?
Well, we now have camping, but it's kind of rustic camping, so it's for actual people, like actual camping, no glamping.
Right.
But we do have a Saturday night dance party, and that's for all the campers. Anybody who happens to be in the neighborhood, we rock the cows for miles. It's definitely a ton of fun.
And where do people find out more information?
Oh, Facebook's usually where I put stuff, but we do have a website, our old website still. But you can find us on the internet, easy enough. Yep.
Good, very nice. And you've got this beauty, 1953 Chev panel truck. Tell us about it. Where did you get it from, and what do you like about it?
Well, I've only had it for a couple years, but I just like it because it's weird, kind of creepy. Yeah. It suits everything that we do. Right. It
kind of a motor does it have in there? Is it a powerful one? Yeah. Does it get you to and from?
It gets us to and from. I couldn't say it's very powerful. Yeah. It's an inline 6-cylinder and it has really low gearing. So like even going on the highway, everyone's passing me like I'm just parading slowly down Main Street.
This looks like something you should have taken to Woodstock one time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you could sleep a whole family of 10 in there probably.
Yeah. Well, because you got a nice real, the back and there's lots of room, right?
Lots of room, yeah, lots of room.
Very nice. We're going to take this and we're going to take Dale Martin Jr. around. Okay. Thank you very much. And as for doing this, I want to give you a couple of tickets to the Lethbridge Bulls that are playing this season. Thank you so much. Now we're going to find Dale Martin Jr. Dale Martin Jr.
Well, hello, Mark Campbell. How are you, buddy?
You actually smile.
I've been known to smile.
Okay.
I put the full chiclets on when necessary.
Very good. I have a most incredible vehicle for you. Come on.
I heard about that. Let's do that.
A 1953 Chev panel wagon. Where were you in 1953?
You and I weren't born.
Come inside. How do you like it?
That's a beauty. That's a beauty. Was that Murray's or Benny's or Balaam? How far back do you go with the Chevy dealer, right?
Yes, I know.
That's awesome.
Let's see if you can get in there.
Let's see if I can fit.
How are your knees? Can you get up?
I can. Hang on, here it is. I'm in.
All right.
Woohoo! Now is the emergency brake on? Oh, there it is.
Emergency brakes off. Thanks, Dad.
Well, I'm looking at it and I'm going, what the heck? That is.
Okay.
Oh boy, Mark.
Did you learn on a standard, by the way?
Yeah.
Growing up.
3 on the tree. You bet.
What kind of a vehicle did you have?
56 Chev.
56 Chev.
My mom's 56 Chev. It was green, and
nice.
I started driving that when I was 13 years old.
Legally, of course.
Oh, absolutely. We'd go to Waterton as kids, and we'd be in this old 56 Chev, and I'd get 3 on the tree, and there was in the lower lake there was a beach called Marquee Hole, and we go down.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember Marquee Hole.
Yeah.
So I drive down there, and there'd be bushes and trees on either side, and I drive just like that, Mark. You're doing pretty damn good on that clutch, let me tell you. Holy smoke. Are we delivering milk today?
Well, you know what? My first job was delivering eggs, and I know he's no longer with us, so I can tell the story. It was Mike Kalita from South Alta Produce.
Oh, sure.
And he said to me, when you're delivering the eggs, do not stack them like there was 24 dozen or something in a crate.
Yep.
He said, do not stack them 3 at a time. Make sure they're not stacked like that. And of course I did stack them 3 at a time.
Of course you did.
Had to stop suddenly. These beautiful AA eggs all crashed to the ground. ground. They all crashed to the ground, and I was so afraid. I just picked up the eggs and I put them back in, broken, and I delivered them to what is now Average Joe's. That used to be an old IGA. I think.
That was an old IGA.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I delivered them all broken.
That boy Mark Campbell.
On 3 days.
Hey.
3 days later, and I've been sweating for 3 days.
That's before 1090 check.
Crocodile
Rock.
It was. But it was 3 days later. There was a phone call at work there. Excuse me, and my boss there was saying, "Well, that can't be right. How you can do that? Why would he deliver them broken? That's ridiculous." Never fessed up that I had broken any eggs. So they were angry that we had given them these broken eggs.
Good.
Totally my fault.
Nice
so now,
going.
for the first time in the history of me, I'm admitting it.
You're admitting it's like when I stole a chocolate bar when I was 10 years old from Benny's Confectionery.
Benny's, oh no.
Man, I'm telling you, it was serious stuff. It was a $25 chocolate. It was one of the bigger ones.
Do you still feel bad about
I
it?
still feel bad about that. My mother found out about that and made me take the quarter to Benny's, and I said, "Oh, Mr. Benny, good old Chinese guy."
Yeah.
His last name was Benny. I don't know if his first name was Benny or whatever, but it was Mr. Benny.
Yeah.
I gave him the quarter, and then he gave me another chocolate bar.
He did?
Yeah. So he was a good old guy, you know. But that was the first and only thing I ever stole.
Oh, what? So he didn't go into a world of crime after that?
No, I
saying,
was
"This is easy."
I was safe. I was
Just
safe.
as long as I say I'm sorry after.
It doesn't have one of those holy hell handles here. Usually you need one of those.
You know, I wouldn't want to go a long distance in this thing right now. I don't think. Just
You're riding that clutch like it's a beauty. I hope your skirt doesn't fly up in the wind when you start running this puppy.
Here we go. All right.
Look out. I can see why they didn't need radial tires back in the day, because there was no cornering anyways.
Whoops, a daisy.
Oops.
Sorry.
Can't you
That's
see
my fault.
Can't you see this green bus?
Sorry, man.
Well, you know, it's funny. As a kid, I remember Frake's Flower Shop.
Sure. Fractures.
Fratch's Flower Shop would deliver flowers to the funeral home, and they had one of these old panel wagons.
Yeah.
And it said Frake's Flower Shop on the side.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And then, of course, when Chrysler came out with the PT Cruiser,
Sure.
sort of was a throwback to these old things, right?
Yeah, there is a big difference between a 53 model and the brand new ones you have now.
Yeah, dramatic. I mean, and it's so obvious driving this thing. But it does remind me of the old 53 Chev. I said 56. It was a 53 Chev.
53. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
same year. Hey.
three on the tree, and
Yeah.
I'll never forget going to Grandma's house at Christmas time, and Grandma used to make popcorn balls, and we still love them.
Yeah.
And we're there in the evening, and it's dark out. There's a nice snow that had fallen on 13th Avenue and 13th Street where Grandma's house was, and Mom had left the 52 Chev running, and we'd been there a long time. She says, "Hon, go out and shut off the car because we're here for a while." Well, I go out and the car's not there. Car isn't there. Somebody stole Mom's 53 Chev. Well, I think the thing was worth $300. So, and I was 10 years old, so it'd be about 1970. Well, sure enough, they found the car the next day. It was over by Capitol Theater.
Oh, right, sure.
Right where we are here. This used to be Marshall Auto Wreckers right here.
Man,
you remember that?
You've been here a long time. You're telling me lots of stuff.
I haven't been as long as Campbell. And I remember going to the Capitol Theater here and watching Jungle Book.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And
the original.
The original Jungle Book and Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
And old A.W. Shackelford getting up front and says, "I'm shutting down the movie till you kids quiet down."
I'm going to have to get you and Belinda Croson from the Galt sitting down talking about stuff from the past, because you all know about all of these
There's
things.
some of those things.
Yeah.
Some of those things you can remember. I'll bet you can park right up there.
I'm going to.
And just tell them, "Hey,
I can't move this anywhere else."
absolutely. It's a fire lane. We're here in case there's a fire." Or park it right in the...
I think we made it.
Look out.
Okay. Sir, we deliver.
Do we get to park here?
Yes. All right, Dale, thank you so much for taking some time here in a busy day. Tell me what's it like to grow up? I mean, and we're talking 4 generations in your family of funerals.
Yeah.
I mean, What's life like I'm sure you get this asked all the time, but in a funereal environment, what was life growing up?
It's so funny. I went through Dad's cupboard this morning. Dad's gone almost 2 years, and we're slowly go through his things. And there's a letter, and it's on his handwriting, says, "Do not throw away." And it was 2 full scap pages of Grandpa Ben when he came from England.
Right.
He was so this is my grandpa.
Right.
Came from England in 1904,
Right.
and he used to build organs, reed organs, that you'd operate by moving the bellows with your knees. And I had this beautiful 2-page written thing that I'd never seen before.
Oh, really?
Just this morning.
Wow.
And it talks about coming to Maynot, Saskatchewan, and homesteading there with his brother and his dad.
Wow.
So my great-grandpa went back to London, and the boys stayed in Canada. But then in 1916, Ben enlisted and went to World War I, but then came back and started in the funeral business. But it was a chunk of history. I hadn't actually seen
Isn't
all of
that
the details.
Wow. So that's kind of cool.
So yeah, and so the boys have been at it forever. Ben and Harry in the early years, then Dad and Derek through the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Then Dad and I sort of like through the 78 is when I started.
Right.
And I took over in the mid 80s, and here we are today. But I'll tell you a funny story. When I was a kid, when you go to the cemetery, you see all the fake grass that's around the grave where the hole is dug. And we used to have the pile of dirt used to sit right there, and the grass would be piled on top. So Dad says to me, he says that the greens are all folded up in the driveway at the funeral home. He says, take those pile of greens and take them downstairs and store them in the basement. But to get to the basement, and I'm only about 12, but I'm a big kid.
Yeah.
I got to go through the morgue and then go through the basement. And then, of course, rather than just taking 2 of these carpets, I put about 4 on because I'm strong, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going through the door, muscle through the door, and I drop the top one. So I bend down and I hit one of the gurneys, the tables, and a hand
Oh, jeez.
does this, hits me in the head in the morgue. Well, that pile of greens would still be sitting here today, sitting there today. But I remember just being, because I knew that there's white sheets over these bodies. But as a kid, but growing up in the funeral business, you kind of learn quickly that this is life, and this is how. And when you see someone that's died, you really realize that they're not there.
Right.
And I'll never forget touching my own grandpa's hand after he died, and it was stone cold.
Right.
And knowing that he's not there, and so. I think it's a wonderful thing growing up in the funeral business. And if you talk to many multi-generational families throughout the world, because we are a multi-generational profession, it's really common that we carry on in our families. They'll tell you those same stories.
Sure.
And so it's kind of interesting.
So life is never gloomy.
It's not morose. It's not morose.
You just because I think about how important it is when someone in your family dies, and how important the person at the funeral home is to that person at that time.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of what you do, making them feel good, and knowing what to do. And when people are grieving, and this, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So you're there to say, take my hand, we'll take you through it, and we'll get through it.
I'll never forget, a lady said to me after I'd made funeral arrangements, and I'd kind of forgot to do a few things that were kind of critical to help her get through it. And she said, Dale, I'm so sorry that we didn't do this, that, or the other thing. And I said, we could have done that.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, Dale, people don't know what they don't know. And I'll never forget her telling me this. And so we've always tried to make sure that we try to cover every eventuality with people, but you never can.
No.
But I think one of the things that I've gleamed in the funeral business is that, and when we train our young funeral professionals, is smile. Bring some warm energy.
Yeah.
When they come in the door and they've lost their mom or dad or spouse, or God forbid, a child, and that happens lots, give them a gentle smile and let them know your name. Hi, I'm Dale. I'm here to look after you.
Yeah.
And just lead.
Yeah.
And I always found one of the things that was really interesting or really important was when you're dealing with someone who's grieving, try to put everything to them in a question. Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Did you sleep last night?
Yeah.
Have you eaten today?
Right.
Well, I had a little bit to eat. But it's funny you should say that. I didn't have anything since lunch yesterday. I said, I've always got a basket of chocolate bars and goodies. I kid you not. Because people's sugar gets low. And when they come to see us the next day after the death, they might have been up late drinking coffee like you and I are.
Yeah.
But late and then you don't sleep, or they might have 2 or 3 glasses of wine and then they didn't sleep either. So the next day they're often really kind of tired.
Yeah.
So it's our job to be efficient with their time and their needs, and to be able to make sure that we've got,
Yeah.
I don't want to say answers, but good options for them to
Sure.
fall back on. So that's what we do.
Well, I mean, you've been here all your life. Obviously, we just learned of all of the rabbit holes that are around
Yeah,
here.
oh yeah, yeah.
But what happens in this business for you when someone you know passes away, and is there emotion that happens with you, or is it becomes a professional thing you have to deal with? Is there?
Well, like even when Dad died a year and a half ago, it was very tough, very sad, very emotional to lose your father,
course.
and our family really had never been on that side of it.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting. I was with Daryl Lockyer, who runs things for me, and the day of the funeral, we were going to the church. I said, Daryl, did you get the thing? Did you get the guy? And did you talk to the thing? And he just looked at me, goes, really? Really? He said, and I'll never forget my staff. We'd finished the service in the church, and we got into the cars. We're going to the cemetery. Well, in the cars were a bunch of the little McDonald's cheeseburgers and coffees, because now we've gone through the lunch hour. We've missed the lunch hour, and they all knew that the girls were hungry for some reason, and there was chit chat that, my goodness, we didn't eat. Well, they had cheeseburgers, and our team will do those kinds of things. And that Daryl's really good at that. He's always sensitive to where people at, and if you can pick up on something you can do,
right.
you do it. And I think that's the extras things that you do in our profession.
You've lived here in Lethbridge all your life. I mean, how important has that been for you?
As a kid, you kind of curse it a little bit. I got to get out of this town and find out what's going on in the world a little bit, And I was lucky. I went away to school for 5 years as a young fella. I went to the coast. I went to Brentwood College on Vancouver Island. Back then, it was kind of like, oh my God, I'm away at boarding school. But it was wonderful. And there's an entire life on the West Coast that those friends of mine have always been close. Lethbridge is home. I could never wait to get home at Thanksgiving. I couldn't wait to get home at Christmas and Reading Week and Easter and then summer vacation.
Yeah.
So, you can become attached to this community. And like you and I walking through here, there isn't someone you don't know. You might not know everybody's names, but Lethbridge, we're 100,000 and we know 82,000 of them, it seems to me, you and I.
Well, yeah, you've been here that long,
Yeah, it feels like it sometimes, right?
But I mean, I think it is true, though. You do need to go away to realize it's not so bad here.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And both my boys, for example, I've encouraged them to go away to school. And my eldest, Will, he's at Simon Fraser in Vancouver, finishing his 4th year in economics.
Yeah.
My youngest has opportunity to play rugby at UBC. He'll be there in the fall.
Wow.
And I said to him, go away for a few years.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it at home, Dad. Well, home is good, but you can get in a rut here.
Yeah.
Listen, you have to go away to appreciate, just like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
So, what did you go to school for?
Well, I did high school at Brentwood, and then I came back and I did Bachelor of Management here at the University of Lethbridge.
Right. Oh, good.
So I'm entrenched here, like it or not.
I mean, and that's the thing about when you're a successful businessman. It is sort of incumbent upon you to not only be successful, but to give back a lot in the community. And I'm sure you're asked all the time for that.
Well,
where do you come out on all of that?
You can sit in life. You can sit on the sidelines and watch things happen, and you can mumble and groan about it. But if you get off your ass and participate, it makes it a whole lot better.
Sure.
And I'll tell a brief story about a lady I met when we were in Buenos Aires last year. We went to Buenos Aires and we toured the wonderful cemetery, the Recollet.
Yeah.
And this woman...
You go away to tour cemeteries?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to go to the cemetery.
Well, where's the funeral chapel? I'd like to see what's in there.
Well, it was funny. So we go to the Recollet. And I think this is interesting. Lovely Spanish gal, our age, 41.
Yeah, right.
Anyways,
exactly.
She shows us the crypt where her husband and her son are buried. And I had a little moment. I was a little verklempt. I thought, because she had a little moment, and I said, "Oh." She says, "But let me tell you a story about Jorge, my priest." So she goes to her priest after her husband and son had died, and he says, this is confessional, but I can see you every day at 3 o'clock, once a week, outside the church here. So he met with her over a few weeks, and it comes back to what I said about participating in life. And he says, you are mourning terribly. You've lost your husband and your son. You're a young mother. He says, you need to help some people.
Oh, interesting.
And he helped her form a clinic for women who are cancer survivors.
Wow.
And created the clinic. And one day Jorge came to her and he says, Mary, he says, I have to go to Rome. We're going to pick a new pope. Can you drive me to the airport? Because he was the Archbishop of Argentina.
Great.
She drops him at the airport. A month later, she was to go pick Jorge up. Jorge phones and says, Mary, I'm not coming back. I am the Pope. So he became the Pope, and Mary told the story, and we were really taken back. And it was kind of, I forget the Pope's last name. We know it's Pope Francis, but his original name was Jorge.
Yeah, Jorge, give me that. Yeah. Oh my gosh! So this was
So it was
Pope
really
Francis.
cool.
Wow.
This was Pope Francis.
Wow.
And she was kind of angry that he left. And
I thought this was a joke that you were telling her. No, this
not a joke. True story.
Yeah.
And then she was in the clinic that she had helped form with the Catholic Church, the cancer clinic, because she herself had cancer. And her cell phone kept ringing, and she says, "Hello, I have someone waiting to talk to you." She says, "I have not time." She hangs up. Phone rings again. You know where I'm going. Phone rings again. She says, "Nobody is gonna comprende." Hangs up again. Finally, rings again, and she says, "Mary, this is Jorge. Just like you, not to be patient enough to take the question." So Pope Francis phones her.
Wow.
And then he says, I can't talk long. I have 3 questions. How's the clinic? Good. How is the dog? Very well. And how are you? I'm doing fine. He says, that's all I wanted to know.
Wow.
So Mary shared this story, and there was a lot to go with it, but it was beautiful. But the story that I loved about it was, when we're depressed and when we're having, in her grief, what Jorge got her to do was to get active and help someone else.
That's interesting.
And I thought it was interesting. I mean, we all grieve something.
Yeah.
We grieve the loss of a job. We grieve when we graduate high school. We grieve the fact we're not with we're out of high school. We grieve when we move from one house to another.
That gal in high school that didn't do anything.
Yeah, that one. Right?
Yeah.
So your whole life you go through these, right? And they're all rites of passage. And and that comes down to the funeral. When the funeral is our final rite of passage. And I always think about when families have lost a loved one. And in our day and age, we're so quick to make decisions. And sometimes we want to deny what's in front of us. And I always encourage people, when dad or mom has died, stop what you're doing. Everybody stop. The kids got to come home from school. Everybody flies in.
Yeah.
And you do have to have a funeral, a celebration of life, a reception, some form of event where it brings the family together. It's really not about dad who's gone anymore. It's about the relationships that dad had.
Yeah.
And I'll often see in the newspaper, at Bert's request, there'd be no funeral.
Right.
And the sad part about that is Bert may have instructed his family that I didn't want a funeral. But the sad part is he's denying that time that the family gets
to
together. Hug, have a coffee, and hear a story.
Right.
I hear family members when I go to those receptions. Did you see that was Uncle Jerry? We haven't seen Uncle Jerry in 50 years.
It's a family reunion.
And you see he's with his 3rd wife. I didn't know he got married again. But what happens is there's a whole thing that happens. The old guys from where Dad worked, they show up. And I was with the CPR for many years. I'll tell you a story about your dad.
Yeah.
We'd pulled up to so-and-so Wilson siding, and one of the cars was coming off the rails.
Yeah.
Well, we pulled it over, and there was the number 4 was coming up behind us.
Yeah.
And there's a whole story.
Yeah, for sure.
Kids didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Didn't know what the old man did. And so the beauty of that is, people will say to me, well, if I have a funeral, Dad was so old, we don't know who would come.
Yeah.
Have it, allow people to come.
Sure.
And let's have more coffee.
Yeah.
Allow people to come. And you'll be amazed how many people come that you didn't know knew your dad.
Thank you so much.
And it's that part of it, to me, is a beautiful mosaic in life. And that sort of is the full circle.
No, I think we're good. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that is something I enjoy in our work when I see sort of people fulfilled. When people go through a funeral over that 3 or 4 day period, they're exhausted at the end.
Oh, yeah.
They're exhausted. They drank coffee, they drank wine, they've done whatever. They've seen people, and they've moved things and picked up. They're exhausted. But usually, a good thing is the widow she's very good tired. She's brokenhearted. But then the weeks to come after that, when the family all return to life, she's alone.
That's the tough part, isn't it?
It's like your father, my mom, they're at Martha's house. They're having to sort of reacquaint themselves with their new world.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so seeing these rites of passages, we all go through it.
What about how tough is it, you know, when it's a young child that dies, especially if it's a major accident, it's a violent crime, it's just something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
How much tougher is that for you as someone with the funeral chapel put together that funeral? I mean, how do you deal with that?
You know, it's interesting. Over the years, I've had young funeral directors start in the profession. And when it comes to dealing with a child, that might be SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? It might be a 2-year-old that got hit by a car, or a 5-year-old that got hit by. You know, we've dealt with all of those, and I've had young funeral directors sort of say, I can't do this work because it is so difficult. And you know, the thing I think when we're called to service, and that's what it is, when you're called to service in that time, in that vein, you have to step up and be with those people. And of all times, you have to be there, a strength for them.
Right.
There's nothing you can tell them that will console them.
Yeah, I bet you there's some cliche things you say that people say, please don't say that. Like I need closure or something. I mean, I've heard people say, I hate that.
You know, and the prevailing education for funeral directors is never tell people how to feel. And that goes for any of us. Never tell someone who's grieving how to feel.
Right.
Like, you know, they're the old quote, oh, time will heal.
Right.
Oh, you'll get over it. Oh, or you'll meet someone new.
Right.
Right? Or come on, stiff upper lip. You'll be fine. Let's go. Those things, you know, grief is very personal. People own their own grief, and everybody's grief is different. I got a friend of mine lost his mom and his sister and brother in a fire in 1981. You probably know who I'm talking about. And John tells me, he says, you know, Dale, he says, I don't ever really remember crying. What's wrong with me? And I said, John, you own your own grief.
Yeah.
You own your own grief. And if John was with us sitting today, he'd say, yeah. It's not that he's not sad, but he owns it in his own way. And you can't take that away from people.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what to do. But the good thing you can do, I always encourage people, ask them how they're doing. Like I was saying, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Did you sleep last night?
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important, if you know someone has lost a spouse, say it was Herbert. Herb died.
Yeah.
Right? And people are afraid to even mention Herb's name. You don't want to upset Hazel.
Right.
Don't bring up Herb's name. Well, you know, Hazel's upset because nobody talks about Herb anymore. It's like he never lived. You know what? Bring up his name.
Exactly.
And say, boy, I remember when Herb and I did this.
Right.
Isn't Herb's birthday on February 6th? Yes, it is.
Yep.
He would have been 87. Yep, it is. Yep. Is it important to remember his birthday to the widow on that day? Yeah, it is.
Right. You know, I remember, and I've told this story to Joe Morrow. Joe Morrow is a friend of mine. His brother.
Unfortunately, a friend of mine too.
Yeah. His brother tragically passed away.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
And it was a horrible thing. And I went to the funeral, and outside, the family was just gathering to go in to the church.
St. Basil's,
and,
yeah.
No, actually, it was St. Pat's. But anyway,
was it St. Pat's?
Yeah,
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
What do I know? It's only 35 years ago.
I wanted, you know, there was something about it that I couldn't force myself to go up to Joe and say, I'm sorry. I, in fact, actually literally hid behind a tree until he walked in. And I felt so bad afterwards. I said that to him. I said, you know, I feel really guilty that I just couldn't find myself going up to you and saying something. And he said, you know, all it takes is shake your hand and say, I'm sorry. That's it. And ever since then, I say, well, that makes sense. That's what you want.
Well, and see, here's the thing here's what happens at the funeral. You've just described it. The day everyone gathers, if you didn't even say anything, Mark, but you gave them a look and a hug, that's all you needed.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. And what the family get energy from that. They get energy from that. They glean strength from that. I've watched widows so happy to see people.
Right.
Oh, Bert and the kids I'm so happy they came. Friends of ours, I was away and John, the dad, had died, and I felt terrible that I wasn't there.
Right.
And I knew where she lived, and I kept driving by her house, and I thought, oh, oh, that's it. I'm pulling in.
Right.
I pull in, middle of the morning. Well, Johanna was there with Pete and Bart, the sons, and I sat and had a visit, and I had a cry with her.
Yeah.
And it meant so much to me that I did. But I apologized that I wasn't there.
Right.
But it was really good for me to know that I got a chance to say hi to her.
Right, sure.
And to see her boys were there, my buddies.
Yeah.
Right? Because I missed them too.
Right.
And she, I think, so interacting, the human interaction, there is no substitute for it. It's everything.
Absolutely.
Yep.
A friend of mine, Dave Mikulik.
Yep.
He was telling me he'll do like an entertainment gig for various groups, and he did one for the funeral people. They were in town one time.
I was there.
He said it was the god awfulest worst gig he'd ever done.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Because he's just take my wife, please. But it was just because you don't know where the humor is, and it was just really tough. So.
Well, let me share.
Okay.
Let me share.
Was it they were bad, or was it just
no? It was here in this building, and I was on the committee chairing the convention. It was all the funeral directors from Alberta had come here. It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But we came and we had our convention here, and we had to have a comedy routine come. And of course, Mikla, I just knew he was funny. Him and Carly Longauger, they were together back then.
Yeah.
And we got this. It's going to be great.
He's going to be hilarious.
Going to be huge. Anyways, that's a different issue. But so they got up there, and he says, he started funeral jokes. This has got to be the dead center of town.
Yeah.
It's okay. How many people work under you? All of them.
Oh, right. So all of the jokes that everybody's heard.
Yeah. Today we're working with a skeleton crew, and they went on and on and on. They didn't hear a lot. Like there wasn't. The funeral was. It was like one of these, really?
Yeah.
We probably got a few more we could give you.
Yeah.
So I remember Mikla struggling, and I said, "Buddy, it's okay."
Yeah.
I said, "Missed the mark, but you, how would you know?"
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
But I remember that one well.
What makes you laugh? Is there? I mean, what kind of stuff makes you laugh? I mean, give me the best funeral joke you got. Come on.
Well,
there we go. Guy walks into a bar. He's a funeral director. He looks up to the horse. I don't know.
Well, I got one. It's not so much a funeral. So this. How does it go? This old fella, he had borrowed $1,000 from his Jewish friend. He borrowed $1,000 from his Catholic friend, and $1,000 from his Protestant friend. And these guys had all borrowed from this one fellow, and the guy dies, and none of the boys had paid him back.
Right.
So they go to the funeral the night before at the funeral, and the Catholic guy goes up. He's got his $1,000. He says, "Hey, Bert, here's $1,000." Puts it under his hand in the casket. Catholic guy says, "Bert, I owe you $1,000." Slipped it under his hand, put it in the casket. And the Jewish guy, and I don't want to pick on the Jewish guy, goes. He says, "Bert, here's a check for $3,000. I'll take the two. Thank you very much." So he left him a check.
Yeah, that's great.
In the casket. So
that's for you, Gary Kahn. Thank you very much.
That's for Gary Kahn, our resident rabbi. Love him. But I'm really glad you asked about humor, because our team, our people, you need humor to get through it. And you might not remember. Well, you remember Monty Pollock. Monty was quite a stout man and worked for us for years. I loved him. I just loved Monty.
Right.
And we would be at a graveside that would be, certainly it would be sad. We'd be finishing, and he'd stand, and three of us would be standing there, just funeral directors, and he'd go, if a bomb landed here, we'd all be killed. Just silly things like that. Yeah. Or he'll be quietly, not with other people around. He says, I was born one dark and stormy night when my parents were away. And he'd walk away. He always had this little deadpan that he would go with. And he had some other off-color humor that he had this delivery, just amongst ourselves, that would lighten the mood like you wouldn't believe. And I miss him. He's dead now. But
what about humor when it relates to someone who's just lost someone? Where do you draw? Like, there must be a kind of a fine line between, hey, sorry, your mom died.
Yeah.
Where do you kind of? I guess you have to know the person for one thing to see to what extent you can be funny.
Yeah. And that never happens on purpose. And I think that when I coach our funeral directors, I always say, don't get when you're with a family making arrangements, don't get too high and don't get too low.
Right.
Try to hit it down the middle, like a golfer. Don't go right, go. Try to go down the middle. And I'll never forget, one of our young funeral directors was meeting with 3 sisters, and their 94-year-old dad had died.
Right.
And the sisters, I think there was 4 sisters, they were laughing so hard talking about dad and stuff. One of the sisters wasn't laughing. It was the youngest one. The youngest one stayed in the nest the longest, so she was the last one to have a close relationship with dad. And my funeral director happened to be a lady, and she was buying into the whole thing and laughing with them and carrying on. And then all of a sudden, the young sister said, "This is my dad's funeral, not his birthday," and just ripped a new one out of our young funeral director. You know, there's such a fine line between tears and laughter. We know that, and when you're with a family making arrangements, they can be laughing doubled over, like with my sisters.
Sure.
I can laugh so hard with those girls, and then the tears will flow the next minute.
For sure.
And so, as a funeral professional, you really got to know that don't buy into it. You got to kind of go in the middle, and always watch for the youngest of the children, because the youngest of the children usually has a lot to say.
Right.
And I've learned from a long time that you need to pay attention to all the siblings when you're making funeral arrangements, but be aware that there's a sensitivity that's always there that you got to be careful of.
Absolutely.
Can't buy in.
Yeah.
You can go along, but don't buy in. You know.
What about when people are arranging a funeral and you say, here are the costs of the funeral that we have here, and they go, what the?
I usually have a bag for them to breathe out of. Do you know what's good? I'm glad you asked that, because when I first started in the business, I did funerals, and I remember our service fee was $888, and caskets were about, the mid-range caskets were about $1,800 or $800. So the total funeral was about $1,600, and we're talking about 1979, 80. I remember it well. And the world changed. Then cremation came on, and we had to recreate ourselves. And so what we do today, Mark, is from all of these years of change, is when people come in, we get an idea for the flavor of what they want, and then we provide packages that gets them what they want in sort of good, better, best.
Right.
And I'll make sure there are price points wherever they're comfortable at. But you still got to deliver what they need.
Right.
You know? And I'll often say to families, look, is there a budget that we should be aware of? Where are you at? And they'll say, well, we want to have something medium price or something.
$600 to $400.
$600 to $400. Well, and you know what? And the Course the Alberta Works program was wonderful. I mean, I love that. If I've got a family that are indigent and have nothing, if I know that right away, boy, we can go to the moon and look after them.
Right.
Because the government has a nice program that
that's
allows
good to know that.
a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Allows a little bit of everything. It doesn't cost them anything.
Because legally you have to have a funeral, or you have to bury someone.
Well,
right?
you need a burial permit for cremation or burial.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all.
Right.
But I love that. But you know who I really worry about? It's those people that aren't qualified for social services, social assistance. We call the working poor.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that is the one I always worry about. And so what we have to do is, we quietly have a little bit of benevolent program. Like, we find out if people are honest with us and say, look, we got nothing, but we've got just a little too much, then we can't apply for the Alberta government program. Then we quietly go, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we'll get looked after you, because they're honest with us, right? And lots of times people say, hey, this is all we can afford. It might be $2,500.
Yeah.
But we'll get it done to what they need.
Yeah.
And I would bet most funeral directors quietly will do that.
Right.
They don't want the whole world knowing that.
Yeah.
But there's sort of a fraternal instinct within our profession that says, look, you have to look after people.
Yeah.
They didn't get up this morning and decide that they got to pay for a funeral.
Right. Exactly.
So it's our job to be proactive. The worst case scenario is people who come in and they spend the world and then they don't have it, and then you're caught hanging the bag. And I get a half a dozen of those a year where we never get paid.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it is $50,000 a year that
you can't.
we're never going to see that money.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only because they weren't straightforward with you.
Right.
So now we're more responsible with our credit approval before we do this. So those things, that's business.
So in the funeral world, as you look forward to the future, what do you see as sort of the next thing? Are we going in another direction for funerals, or where do we is it going to be online?
That's a great question. Did you lose sleep last night?
I
thinking
did.
of
I
this?
can't. And I haven't eaten a
You
thing
have-
since
you
I
have-
knew I was
yeah,
talking to you.
yeah.
I just, oh God,
Get this
what am I
guy.
going to ask this asshole?
Get this guy a cheese sandwich. Get him a cheese sandwich.
No, but so where do you see it? Where do you see it going?
Well, nobody's asked me that question before, but you know what I'll tell you what won't change. Relationships won't change. The need for community won't change. The need
Right.
for family and coming together, that won't change. But how we do it, you know, I think cremation is inevitable. That will continue.
Like environmentally, that makes sense,
Environmentally,
right?
that's fine. I think they'll
Curbside recycling of funerals.
There you go. But you know, you think about the internet. We're simulcasting or whatever you call it. What do you know?
Yeah.
What do you call
Streaming.
it? Streaming. We're
Yeah.
streaming services all the time for
Right.
a son who's in, a long ways away overseas.
Yeah. Picture Butte.
Yeah, Picture Butte. You know, there's no bridge over there. So yeah, But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think a lot will change.
Yeah.
You know, so there'll always be a need.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up, what is your final thoughts for the day today? Funeral business, you, Lethbridge, the world.
Well, you know, final thoughts is, my friend Ralph Thrall and his father before grandfather
Right.
talked about running the ranch they were custodians of the land.
McIntyre Ranch.
McIntyre Ranch.
Yeah.
They would always speak about we are the custodians of the land. We are the caretakers to look after it. And I often think, that's kind of our job too. We are the custodians of the hearts of the bereaved in Lethbridge.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been here 110 years.
Yeah.
And, Grandpa buried guys that fell off the high-level bridge
Yeah.
when it was being built.
Yeah.
Grandpa buried guys from the coal mine disasters. And, when I see people on the street, I'll often see people that I know, oh yeah, we buried their son or daughter.
Yeah.
And I think there's a part of that for me. It's been 40 years for me since I started in this business. This is my 40th year in the business, and I kind of look at it like that. It's not like a burden,
Right.
but it's a shared responsibility in your lineage that you do what you can,
Right.
but it is an obligation to make sure you do it right and follow through.
Sure.
That's my thoughts.
Dale Martin Jr. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much,
Thank
Mark
you.
Campbell.
All right. Thank you.
1090 check.
All right. Playing what you're saying.
What you say.